The 1v1 interview series is a production of the Boss Rush network of podcasts. Visit bossrush.net to listen to our podcast and read our articles, game reviews, and more. You can also follow us on Twitter at Boss Rush Network to stay up to date with our content. Thank you for listening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to 1v1 with Boss Rush Network. I'm your host, Celeste Roberts. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Kristy Edgar, founder of From Pen to Paper Studios, where she makes, as she calls it, teeny tiny paper art. How cute is that?
Yeah, no, it's really fun and time consuming, but I love doing it. It's fun.
Oh, Kristy, thank you so much for making time on a Tuesday evening to talk with us a little bit about your crafts. I talked to Kristy a little bit before we started the interview, and I said I've been admiring her work for a little while now. It's so unique. I've never seen anything like it.
Well, thank you. I definitely I really enjoy doing it, and I know the medium isn't necessarily super traditional. There's a whole community of paper artists out there, and I've watched their accounts and their process and practice with them. But it's definitely it's something that people kind of enjoy seeing just because it is such a unique medium.
It's so much fun. It's precious. Like I love doll houses and paper
Oh yeah,
dolls.
yeah,
So
no, me.
yeah, it reminds me of that. And I just can't get over how intricate
Yeah.
everything is.
Well, and so it's kind of funny because like I when I first started I never made them that small because I was just kind of figuring out how to do things. And then I did make one that was kind of small, and I took a picture like holding it, and someone's like, I never noticed the scale until you were like holding it, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess that is a good way to kind of like indicate scale. So then I was like, I wonder how much smaller I can make things because I like tiny miniature things too. I don't know why that's like a thing that I just just like things that like it's cute, but can you miniaturize it? Like that would be better. So I just kind of kept trying to like make things smaller, and then I started becoming like a paper nerd and like learning about different types of paper, and I was like, oh okay, so this is cool, but if I had vellum and I colored it, then it could be cooler. So like the majority of what I make now is just a test of myself to see like, okay, I have an idea of what I want to do, and I always tell my husband like, I'm gonna make this, and he's like, how? And I was like, I don't know, we're gonna figure it out, it'll be fine.
Oh, what is vellum?
So vellum is like semi-translucent paper. It's
Okay.
kind of like sort of like tissue paper, but
Mm-hmm.
it's sturdier and it cuts a little bit better. So like if I'm doing something that's like a glass or has like a smoke effect or like something like that, I'll use vellum. And before I'd only use like just white vellum, but then I'm like, oh my god, it comes in so many colors. So I've experimenting with that. I use vinyl a lot, like sticky vinyl, to cut the really, really tiny pieces because it's more plastic and that cuts a lot easier than paper because paper tends to have more of kind of like a fabric sort of texture sometimes. So when you're cutting super teeny tiny, it tears a lot more and it's harder to manage. And I sweat a lot when I do things. Sometimes like my hands get wet and I'm like, this isn't working. So using vinyl helps with like the super teeny tiny things.
Oh my gosh. I can't even, I wouldn't even know where to begin with that. That is so cool. And I didn't even think about the different types of paper. I guess because when I was growing up, like the big deal was construction paper.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I'm like I said, I'm a super nerd about it at this point. Like I'm really OCD about color. And so like I'll have an idea of what I want something to look like and I'll like design it and then like look for the exact color to match it. And if it's just like a little off, I'm like, it's fine, I guess. It's great. It's fine. But I get kind of frustrated with that. But in terms of like textures, I my favorite brand is Bazill. It's Bazzill, and I like them because they have a ton of colors. But what I like the most about them is they're a lot more. I'm sorry, I'm going on like maybe 1% of the 1% are going to care about this.
No, I'm fascinated.
But they have it's not textured, and non-textured paper is a lot easier to work with. And textured is like it has like the little bitty bumps on it, so like when you touch it, it kind of it doesn't feel smooth. It has like a texture to it. And while that sometimes looks cooler, so like I'm trying to do more of an effect with it, I'll use it. But if it's too textured, it's really difficult to cut. And then my least favorite paper is the paper that has it's called a white core. So you have like the color, and in the middle of the paper it has a layer of white. So like when you tear it, it doesn't tear, and you see the color of the paper inside the tear. It's white. So when you cut that, little bits will like show up, and it'll kind of be distracting. So, um, yep, that's
That
some
is so
dirtiest things
cool.
I've ever said.
That that is so cool though, and I guess I'm thinking about like, school projects with construction paper and doing the tie dye with the coffee filters. That
Oh
was
my
a
gosh, yeah, absolutely.
popular project. So
Yeah.
you're bringing to mind just how much of a variety there is in the paper world, and I
Yeah.
don't think people realize. I certainly didn't think about it
No.
until you triggered some memories.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of a lot like shopping for fabric, I'd imagine. I don't sew. I've tried and I'm not very good at it. So I do a lot like going to sorry. I
She
do
has
a
a
lot.
kitty cat.
Yeah, my cat's being very needy right now. I'm sorry. I'm just amazed at like the different like actual options there are. Like, in the early 2000s, I'm gonna date myself for a hot second. Like when scrapbooking was really big, and like everybody was scrapbooking. Like I kind of got into it, but like once I started like thinking of how I want to translate designs into paper, then I like really got into it, and I started kind of being a snob. Like I remember and I don't know, I'm not going to say the names of the stores because I don't want to like badmouth them, but like there was one store that's now working with a different manufacturer. And I came there, it's like, they only have texture paper now. Like, this sucks. So I'm like, now I can't shop here anymore. Like, this is awful. And then one of the other stores that I've shopped with discontinued the perfect, like, they had a line of colors that were like the perfect skin tones. Like, they had beautiful neutrals. And I'm like, these are amazing. And then they decided to discontinue them. And like, it was funny. I had a friend that's, I guess, another paper artist that I know that's on Instagram, and I was like, I like complained about it, and she's like, "Oh, I'll check my Hobby Lobby. I totally understand what you're thinking. Like, I know exactly the paper you're talking about." And she's like, "They're out of them here too," and I'm like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "This is such a first world problem," but like that was like the perfect color, and so like I went on this like crusade to try to find a replacement, and the only place I could find it was like Amazon, and it's still okay, but it's not like the exact color. So every so often I'll find like scraps of it, like from before they discontinued it. I'm like, oh my god, it's like gold. I gotta save this because it doesn't exist anymore.
Now, is this because of the global pandemic? Because I've heard that some things
So
are.
just being jerks about it, I think. I don't
Oh, okay,
know.
okay.
This is
That's
before that. Yeah.
okay, okay. Because I was thinking about how some people, like, with lumber right now, it's
Oh
so
yeah.
scarce, and I was wondering, oh gosh, paper is made
I
from
didn't even
trees.
think about that. God, I hope not. I mean, I have like, oh my God, I really hope our house never catches on fire because my room's gonna go up and like that. Like, I have so much paper. Like, it's a lot of times like I'll go to a store and I'll be like, I like this paper. I have no idea what I'm gonna do with it, and I'm probably not gonna do anything with it for a while. But I want it because it's really cool. And so my husband's like, "What are you gonna do with like this mermaid sequin paper?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It's so cool. Like I just want to touch it. I just like it." So
Oh,
yeah, I have a problem with buying paper on impulse, especially when there's a sale, especially when they have new glitter paper.
I mean, you never know. Your creations are just all over the spectrum of pop culture, literature, movies,
Yeah,
celebrities,
yeah.
and I love that.
Oh, thank you. And I mean, that's kind of like My favorite quote that I feel like describes me the best is Simon Pegg talks about like what it means to be a geek, and it's just having unbridled excitement towards something and showing it unapologetically. And I kind of feel like that's how I do like everything. And I'm a super nerd. I was an English major, so I love literature. Um, and I love to consume pop culture. And I mean, there'll be some times where people will request something, and I'm like, I don't know what that is, and so then like I'll do a deep dive, and like, well, now I love it, so now thank you for that.
Well, I have an English degree as well, so
Oh,
I'm right there with you. I'm so excited. That's so exciting because I don't think
yeah,
a lot of people realize the value
yeah.
in that.
So I at one point, when I remember this distinctly, when I was in seventh grade, I had an art teacher, and I was in my first like actual like art class. 'Cause you do like art in elementary school, doesn't count. So then when I was in middle school, I was in an art class. Her name was Mrs. Klein, and I don't know if she's ever gonna hear this, so I really don't care because she was mean. So
Okay.
tired at this point. This isn't a like inspiring teacher story. This is a that. So I remember like when I was younger, I always wanted to like I was like a grade grabber. I always wanted to get A's, and I could not get an A in her class because she just didn't like me. She didn't like what I was doing. She didn't like that I was a grade grabber. I don't know, but like I would try to do something, and she would always go in and like scribble all over it and like show people like this is how it should look. And I'm like, okay, well I guess I'm not good at art. I'm just gonna stop doing this then because you killed it. So I never took another art class after that. But then on the flip side, in ninth grade. It was ninth grade. I had a really great English teacher, so I'm like, oh, okay. Well, now I like literature. I'm gonna go ahead and just focus on that. So that kind of just continued throughout college and throughout high school and all of that. And so I mean, I still like to like doodle and like, things like if you look at my notes in college, I'm like a maniac. But I never really kind of saw doing anything in the liberal arts as like a viable career. Like I got an English degree because I loved English, but then I also got a degree in secondary education because I'm like, but I want a job. So what my dad convinced me like you're gonna get a job teaching English. I'm like, okay, well I guess I'm not gonna do that. But so, and this is by no means bad mouthing English degrees. Like I don't regret getting one whatsoever. I think it's made me a better communicator. I think it's made me a lot of things, but it was definitely a challenge. Like getting a degree in education was kind of a surefire. Like you're going to be a
Hmm.
teacher with this degree, whereas like with English, it's kind of like you can do lots of different things or nothing. Who knows? So so yeah, I started teaching high school, and I would like illustrate all the notes for the kids and like do a lot of like visual note taking techniques with them, and like I would do a lot with like infographics and like visual learning things, and I would like make all these videos for them. And so like I really enjoyed uh just being artistic that way, but then also coupling it with like just the I guess interest of being a teacher and like being very analytical and like learning more about things. And then we moved to a new city, and my husband got a new job, and I had to leave the classroom. So that's when I was like, well, I guess I'm going to be an artist full time now. That's cool. So that wasn't an existential crisis at all. But yeah,
Oh, wow. So you've been a teacher for a while, so you're currently not teaching at
no,
the
I went.
okay.
Yeah, I left in January, but before then I started teaching in 2010. And in 2012 I started teaching middle school history, which was uh, really fun actually. I when I got the job, it was at a private school, and I remember distinctly they're like I was applying to be an English teacher there, and they're like, we don't need an English teacher, we need a history teacher. What do you know about American history? And I'm like, we beat the British, I know that. And they're like, okay, well, can you learn some more stuff? And I'm like, probably, I don't know. So it was a really tough couple of years because I didn't know hardly anything. I was just like, I don't, God, I feel so bad for my students my first year because I told them so many things that were wrong. But the good thing about it was an international school, so the majority of the students didn't know anything about American history. So as long as I was a couple chapters ahead, like I was still the smartest person in the room. So it was great. So I did that for almost 10 years, and the first semester last year, I mean, I don't think there's a teacher out there that was like, it was the best semester ever. It was rough. It was really rough. I mean, even in the best circumstances, even if your school had incredibly supportive staff and you weren't understaffed and your administration was 100% getting your back whatsoever, but that wasn't our case. It was tough. It was really tough. So I wasn't totally heartbroken to leave. I was sad to leave my coworkers, and I was sad to leave my students, and I was sad to do it in the middle of the year. But then it's given me a lot of opportunities to explore an aspect of my skill set that I haven't been able to like 100% give myself to. So that's been good.
You bring up a lot of good points because I remember, I guess like in the height of COVID, when a lot of people were getting laid off or they were furloughed, they they kind of did what you're describing, where they were finally able to pursue something they've loved and they'd kind of put on the back burner for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah. It was really, and honestly, we in March last year, that's when we got the word that we're basically going to be spending the rest of the year at a distance. So I never really got to see my students in person again. Like the last time I saw them, it was really kind of weird because when I went back to my classroom in August of the next school year, it still said March 13th on the board because that was the last day I saw them, and that was the last day we were allowed to go in the room. So that was really weird. But it actually ended up being a blessing because I mean I got to spend so much more time with my son and my husband, and the only part that was tricky is we were both teachers, so we had to kind of like balance our
Wow.
schedule. Like, okay, I have class from this time to this time, and you have class from here, and one of us needs to make sure Leo's eating. So so that was a little challenging, but overall, I mean, that part was really good, and it really did give us more of an opportunity. Like my husband built he's a musician, so he built a bass because he was like, what else am I gonna do?
He built a base. Oh my
Yeah, so
God.
he loves building instruments. Both of us are kind of just, we're crafty people. We like to build things and then get bored with it and build something else. So he started working at Sweetwater out here in Indiana, and he loves it. It lets him play with fancy toys every day and talk to important, interesting people every day. So, but yeah, that's kind of. Oh, and he also really got into sourdough bread like everybody else did.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, your son is going to be just the craftiest little Leonardo da Vinci
Oh my God.
ever.
Or he's gonna play football. Like, I don't know, but like neither of us are built to be athletic. So I don't know. He could rebel. I don't know. I think my husband would be heartbroken if he wasn't in band at some point. But yeah, I've tried to get him to color, and like he doesn't like it. He doesn't like doing crafty things. He likes cars and he likes rocks. And that's about it. So
Gosh, that's so cute. And
yeah.
and you were, I believe from seeing some of your posts, because you'd like to do flashbacks. I believe
Yeah.
you are musically inclined as well.
So yeah, I was in marching band. I wasn't very good. Well, it didn't really matter if I was good. I played the clarinet, and no one could hear us anyway. So, it didn't really matter if I was playing at all, to be completely honest. But yeah, no, I was in band all throughout middle school and high school. And then my husband and I were both in the Cornhusker marching band, Go Big Red, and it happened to be the worst year I think Nebraska had. It was the last year Callahan was coach. It was 2008, and God, he was so horrible. But we were in marching band together, so that was fun. And then I was like, after that year, I'm like, yeah, I'm done with band. I'm done with these 6 a.m. practices. I'm gonna go sleep in and read. That's a better use of my time. That's what I would do.
I'm laughing because I was in band as well, and oh man, I played flute, so I'm with you on nobody could hear
Yeah,
us.
yeah. Yeah, unless you're piccolo right in the front, like the front line, no one's gonna hear it. We are the ones that complete the curve. That was our job.
Yeah, we were warm bodies walking around.
We made the image look like what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the pretty shapes, and I'm sure, as a teenager, whenever we'd look for really horrible perverted shapes in the,
Oh my
in
God,
the videos.
absolutely. Like you're not a 17-year-old unless you're doing. Oh my God, I did have students that would do stuff like that. I could tell you so many student horror stories about students drawing phallic things and things, but that's not what you're here to talk about.
I think we're gonna need like a follow-up episode of just like Boss Rush 1v1 After Dark.
Oh
Tales from the classroom.
I teenage boys, man, like I don't know what it is. They just like to draw stuff on
So
everything.
Superbad wasn't too far off then.
No, God, no, 100% accurate. Like I remember when that movie came out, I'm like, yep, nope, all of that is, yep. And
It's
sophomore
accurate.
the hardest to teach because they were just like, they were 16, so they're getting their driver's license, so they think they know everything. They're not freshmen anymore, so yeah, I got to spend 2 years doing that. That was fun.
I have to say, your paper craft looks a little bit more relaxing.
Oh my God, absolutely. Like there were days where I'm just like, I don't want to deal with any people. Like it wasn't even students. I'm like, I just don't want to people today. I'm just gonna stay inside and close my door and make a tiny something. I don't know yet. Something that's not requiring me to interact with anybody.
I know what you mean. Well, how long do the projects take? Some look really large, and then some look even, really small. Like I've seen you do kind of like diorama type, like
Yeah.
lengthy ones, and I've seen you
So
do like singular characters.
yeah. So it's kind of a process. I'll kind of first like get an idea, or somebody will suggest something. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna find some reference photos. So a lot of times I'll look at like art that other people have done to kind of like get an idea of like, okay, so these are things that other people has done. I'm
Her
sorry.
cat loves her.
No, she's just being naughty. I'll look at like actual like reference pictures of the, like if it's a movie and it's like character in a movie, I'll look at like those actual pictures. I then design it digitally, and that usually takes, that kind of depends on like the how complicated it is. Like sometimes if it's really simple, it won't take very long, but a lot of times it can take maybe 2 to 3 hours. And then cutting it out actually is a combination of, I have Excel blades. Shout out to Excel blades, they're the best. And then I also use a silhouette to help kind of cut the more intricate things. So I combine those two together. And when I cut things out, I always organize all the pieces by paper color because I'm super weird and OCD about color. And then I kind of, when I construct it and actually assemble it together, I use this really fine tipped applicator and tweezers. And my dad, so my dad also, he's ex-military. He used to be in the Navy, but he likes to build models, like plastic models. And so he works with teeny tiny things too. And he got me one of these like goggle things that have like the light and the magnifying glass, and it just completes the whole like 40, 50-year-old woman with cats thing that I'm going for. Uh,
Is it like that character in Atlantis, the Lost Empire,
yeah, oh my God,
mole or
100% like
something?
that. Yeah. And I'm not ashamed of it because it's really helpful. So yeah, the assembly, depending on the amount of pieces and how like tiny it is, and like it also, if it's something that's kind of, I guess, experimental, like I don't know if this is gonna work, like having to like try it and be like, oh, okay, I need to cut that out again because that did not work. So so yeah, I would say from start to finish, anywhere from like 3 to a couple of days, 3 hours to a couple days.
Wow. And
Yeah.
at the time of this recording, it's possible you will have finished this project by the time this episode comes out, but you are doing the alphabet. You're doing different characters to reflect
Yeah,
letters of the alphabet.
that's been really fun. And if I had my notebook, I have this little notebook that I get from Target, and it's like the perfect size to fit in like a purse. It's like teeny tiny, and I write like all my ideas and plans and stuff in there. And I wrote out, and I get really frustrated when I make mistakes. So if I make a mistake, I just tear a page out and start over. Um, so I made my list, and I was like, okay, I've redone this list like 4 times. this is it. I'm not changing it. And then I started working on it. I'm like, oh, I just thought of something. Like, I don't want to tear this out. So I have all these little like sticky notes that I've like cut into little squares to like cover it and then write another name on top of it. So it's like, it's changed so many times because I just keep like thinking of something else or like deciding I don't like my idea and I want to start over. But it's been really fun. It's been really hard. Because a lot of the characters are characters I know, but then some of them I'm like, I don't really know this character, but I know that I'm gonna like pander to my fan base. I know people will enjoy it, but I did make this character. Um, but it's also kind of gotten me thinking like I really want to do more kind of like themed alphabet things. So it's like, okay, these are ABC characters of just like comic book characters or whatever. Um, but I don't know. After this, I'm gonna start working on. I like to do a theme like every month just to keep myself, I guess, progressing and doing more stuff. So next month is the premiere of Bob's Burgers, their next season. So I'm gonna do. I know, I'm super
So
excited.
excited.
I've been coming up. I did an interview with another podcast. It's called North to Wharf, and they're great. Um, but I've actually worked with them a couple times, and I'm like, hey, so I want to do this piece, but I need some help because I'm really knowledgeable on the earlier seasons, but I haven't watched the newer seasons quite as much, and so they're helping me with that. I also have kind of worked with another Instagrammer, Tina TBH, who is adorable and she has great products that she makes.
I
Yeah,
saw your post with her.
yeah,
Yes.
she does some of the best crossover art I've ever seen. So she's helping me with that too. But and then October is 31 Days of Halloween, which I know there's like a million different lists that you can do, and I should just probably find my own list. But I like to make things difficult for myself, and I just make my own list. Um, and so this year I'm going to do 30. Last year I did it with just characters I hadn't done yet, and this year I think I'm going to do 31 Days of Halloween, but like women of Halloween, so just female characters. I know.
Ooh.
So I'm excited about that. And then I don't know what I'm doing for December. Maybe sleeping is what I'm gonna do.
Maybe sleeping. You don't want to do all holiday icons for 31
Right.
days.
I've done Christmas movies before and like I've hit all the classics already. So I'm kind of like don't want to do the same movies again. So and then there's like someone's like, well, you could just do Hallmark movies. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I don't want to do that.
They probably all look very similar.
It would be the exact same character. It would almost be kind of funny to just have like the same like guy and girl, but just change their outfits and hair with every single like. And this is this movie, and look, she's blonde in this one.
That would be so funny. I'm trying to think. Maybe you could do. Have you done like something with Hanukkah or Kwanzaa
Oh,
or?
I haven't. That's a good idea. I think kind of branching out more. And that's the other thing too. I want to do things that are more respectful to diversity and different lifestyles and different orientations. And I'm wanting to do it, but I'm always so hesitant because I'm like, I don't want to do it wrong and do something insulting unintentionally.
Mm-hmm.
So I always like to kind of ask people. Like there was one lady I remember at one point I posted something for I think it was for MLK Day, and I was like, I really want to do more for like African American History Month. And she's like, oh, I'll give you a list of all the characters. I'm like, that's actually really helpful. So I know like exactly. Cause I mean, I'd love to know more about things. I really do, and I never want to do something that would be taken the wrong way. I guess or like them so.
Yeah. It's dealing with cultures and religions and things that mean a lot to people. That's a tricky.
Right.
That's a slippery. That could be a slippery slope. So I think it's awesome that you reach out to people, and maybe if you decide, hey, I want to do something with Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, or how do other cultures celebrate
Yeah.
around this time of year? Hey, put out a question. I'm sure with your
That's
fans, they'd love to help you.
well, that was one thing. So I grew up in Nebraska, and then we moved to Houston, and I hated living in Texas. I'm sorry if you have Texas listeners. I loved how much Texans loved their state, but I also hated how much Texans loved their state. Like
They love it.
they love it so much, and I appreciate that. but like I just never felt like I like belonged. Like I always felt like an outsider. But what I loved the most about living in Texas was, specifically Houston, was how like multicultural the city was. Like living in Nebraska, we don't have like, a lot of diversity because nobody really is like rushing to move to Omaha. But like Houston has so much with the oil industry and
Mm-hmm.
medical industry and just so many more, I guess, opportunities for international clients and international employers that a lot of the students we had at school, I was like, I don't know anything about that. Like, I don't know anything about Indian holidays or, just we had a lot of Nigerian parents and we had a lot of like British parents. And it was so cool, like learning about their different cultures. So I'm very open to. We also, it was total tangent, but it was also really interesting how many of our students were super comfortable talking about sexual orientation and like their sexual identity and things like that, like not in an inappropriate way, but just like I had several students that are like, yeah, I consider myself to be a lesbian, or I'm gay, or I'm bi, or things like that. And I was like, that is so cool that you guys are so comfortable just talking about how you feel about things. So yeah, I am very interested in learning about aspects of other people's lives that I don't necessarily do. Like I'm, I know who I am and things like that, but I love learning about other people's things. And I guess I also just never want to be considered like a poser or something, like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you're just making this to appeal to this group or whatever. And that's never really the case. I want to learn about as many people as I can.
I think no matter what you do as a person, whether it be through your art or just interacting with people, there is a chance that
Oh yeah.
somebody will misinterpret something. But I think most people are open-minded and
Yeah.
welcoming and appreciate curiosity and a
Well,
genuine desire to understand.
I remember at one point there was a couple things that I made that I got, I don't want to say backlash, but a couple people were mad about it. Like I did for Halloween last year, I did a little version of Michael Jackson from Thriller, like in the zombie thing, and they're like, "This is inappropriate. I'm unfollowing," and I'm like, "I'm sorry. I just thought it was cool. I mean, yeah, I guess he like it came out later, and you're right, but okay, I'm sorry. Like that wasn't what I was in. I wasn't trying to make a statement by any means." Another person got upset that I did Ace Ventura because the movie was transphobic, and I'm like, well, yes, looking back at it, I can definitely see why you would think it's transphobic. But I just wanted to make a bunch of tiny animals like that. That was the statement I was making. I did lose a lot of followers when I made a post about the election, which I knew was going to happen because people politics, no matter what, are going to be divisive. But every so often, like I'll get a wave of something like that where I'm like, well, then, I mean, if that's something that pushes you over the edge, then it's probably best that you're not following me anymore.
Especially a paper craft. Wait until they read the news.
I know. I'm just like, I made a tiny paper, Biden and Kamala, and they're just like, wow, great to show you real colors. And I'm like, I, I mean, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you, but if you are offended, then it's okay. I'll go ahead and lose a few followers because of it. It's fine.
You can't win, no matter, especially in the creative
Absolutely.
realm. You're gonna upset someone. Somebody's not gonna like your writing. They're not gonna like your art. They're not gonna like your music.
Well, and I think honestly, like all of that is kind of been the scariest thing about kind of getting into the art field in general is just like there is so much like I guess fluidity to it. Every so often you'll make something and it'll go like lots of people will like it, and you get this boost of self-esteem. But there'll be other times I'm like, I'm really proud of this, and I'll post it and like a fraction of what the normal interaction I would get. Just like, oh, I'm stuck now. Okay, that's fine. So social media is kind of like a necessary evil, especially I guess as an artist now. Like so many artists use it to promote their work, to gain business, and that's kind of how I use it. So anytime, like I've done so much unnecessary research on like the algorithm and like when to post and what to post and all that stuff. And like I'm dedicating so much time to this, and I feel like such an idiot doing it. But like when the traffic that's generated from that is directly fed into my business, it's kind of like, well, if this doesn't do well, then I wouldn't be making as much money, and that's a problem. So
Hmm.
yeah, and social media and being an artist with social media is just like such a fickle thing.
It it is because sometimes I feel like there's like information overload with
Absolutely.
social media. It feels exhausting. And I like, okay, here's my phone, and like I'll check Twitter and Instagram, put it down. A few minutes later, I'm back.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
It's
I'm
horrible.
aware that it's an addiction, and I try to give myself time to like, and actually I've turned off notifications for like, I kind of like silent hours where I'll just turn off every notification unless it's like an emergency. But
Hmm.
9 times out of 10, anything that's an emergency isn't really an emergency. But like, um I think the other thing that can be a little challenging is like the power the consumer perceives that they have.
Hmm.
Because so much of what we do is like small business. Like, I'm not backed by anybody. I'm a one person employee. Like, I do everything myself. So like, it would be very easy for one person. Oh God, I don't want to give anyone an idea, but just like, the, like, the consumer has a lot of power, especially since the majority of my business is through Etsy. Like, if you get a certain number of like negative reviews or like even 4-star reviews, like it tanks your ability to be found on Etsy. So it's just so much of, I guess, like kind of the negative truth there is it's hard to, I guess, realize value to your work sometimes, or that perceived value gets shaken when so much of it is dependent on the interaction that people have with it on such a inconsistent platform.
That's a great point. And some people are just unhappy, miserable people,
They
and
are.
they it's probably all psychological, but they feel like they don't have power anywhere else in their lives.
Absolutely.
They're gonna be a bully.
Oh, I know. No, and I mean, like when I was a teacher, it was the same thing. Like the kids, the bullying. Like, I'm so glad that the worst thing that ever happened was like I would call somebody on their home line and their dad would pick up and I wouldn't know what to do. Like, that was like the worst kind of interaction. But like, you're never not connected. Like when I went home in 7th grade, like anything that happened at school stayed at school because we didn't have cell phone. God, I sound so old. We didn't have cell phone.
We're about the same age. I'm in my
Right.
early 30s. So.
Right. But like, we would like do the elaborate folding of notes and flick them to each other. Like, that was our texting. So like, I can't imagine like being in the prime of your social and mental development and being constantly connected to everything, and knowing that even if you're not connected, it's still happening, which gives you a sense of like anxiety and like, what are they saying that I don't know about, that, if I go to school the next day and something's happened online that I didn't know about and people are talking about it, and like, I don't know, maybe I'm just a very nervous, anxious person.
It's
But
understandable. It's really scary, and I have to stop reading the news sometimes,
I agree.
especially local news. Like a few
Oh
weeks
yeah.
ago, yeah, a few weeks ago there was a shooting against one person in the town not far from me. A poor grandma was waiting in the car line to pick up her grandchild, and this kid, I say kid because he was 17, walked up and wanted to mug her, and when she resisted, he shot her in the abdomen. She's alive, but I'm like, your life is gone. They
Absolutely.
caught him. That's it. You're done.
You're
You
done.
threw it away for what, like $20 in a lady's wallet?
Yeah. That's so sad. That's so
But
sad.
it is. But I think that's what's so important about art. Would you ever
Yeah.
consider like teaching classes through art? Have you thought about that?
Uh, so I kind of have some like imposter syndrome. I feel really anxious talking about something that I don't feel like I have credible background or training in. So like when I was a teacher, I never really felt anxious because I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I have training. I can back up everything I'm saying with like, research that I've done and courses. Like, I know I'm very confident in what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
when it comes to art, like 99% of it is just like me just kind of like tooling around and figuring stuff out.
Mhm.
Like in November, I'm going to be, hopefully, I'm going to be speaking at a conference and for caricature art, and I've never really considered myself a caricaturist, but they're just like, oh no, but your style is so cool and you need to talk about it, and I'm like, okay, cool. know. I was like, what do you want me to talk about? And they were like, whatever you want. I'm like, okay. Like when it's teaching, I know the students have to be there. And so, like, I don't care if you don't like me, you're stuck here. But when it's a conference, like, I'm like, you paid money to come listen to me say something, and me specifically, and I don't know what to say. And so I feel like there's an added pressure. So to answer your question, no, because I would be terrified of if somebody asking me a question like, explain how you did this. I'm like, I don't know. It just
It just happened. It just
I
happened.
don't remember. Or like if I explain it and they're like, that's a really stupid way to do it. Like I would just feel so, yeah, I'm a very anxious person.
I know what you mean. I think it'd be awesome. Do you have like a Patreon or a YouTube where people can watch you make stuff?
Yeah, so I do have a Patreon, and I'm gonna date myself again. I tried doing TikTok. I'm not good at TikTok. Like I think I am. Like I think the stuff I'm making is cool, but TikTok doesn't think so. So I've tried to do a few process videos there, and like it's never really like caught on. So I'm like, well, they take an enormous amount of time to like edit and put together, and if nobody likes them and nobody cares, I'm not gonna keep doing it. So, but I have thought about doing like a Twitch account or something with streaming where like I can go live and just like, hey, today I'm gonna be putting together this. But yeah, I've thought about adding that to my Patreon. I'm not gonna Patreon either. I'm good at like maybe 4 things, and
Aw,
I'm
don't
not
sell yourself short.
I'm not so good at like figuring out how to make Patreon work or TikTok or any of those things. Like, but I definitely think that streaming would be something that I would like to do. I mean, the other thing that's a little tricky about it is since I'm at home and my son is too, it's hard to kind of uninterrupted like focus time on like streaming something. So I'd have to wait till my husband gets home, and by then it's dark and I don't have adequate lighting, and I'm just making excuses for myself, to be completely honest. But I have
I understand. Because I actually follow some artists on Twitch and I like watching them sketch and
oh
paint and
yeah.
they just interact with the audience. And I understand. I hope if one day you do, and I hope one day I see on Instagram that you've shared your Twitch stream or wherever you decide.
Yeah, no, there's an artist that I absolutely love. Her name is Mega Felt. And she's in Australia, and she and I have similar mediums in the sense that she constructs things with felt and I do it with paper. Hers are 3D and they're adorable. She makes little hamburgers out of felt, like they're amazing. But she's done some Twitch streaming, and it's just she has a camera above her and she's just putting it together, and like every so often she'll like answer a question. I'm like, okay, I might be able to do that. I don't know. And then I feel old because I'm just like, God, kids these days and all their technology and their rap music and
Gosh, I think we're turning into our parents.
oh my God, I don't even want to think about that. I did like get really excited because I got like some new toothpaste that was like like whitening actions. Like, oh my God, I'm really
What
excited about this. My husband's
what
like, you're really excited about toothpaste? I'm like, yes,
what
I
kind of
am.
toothpaste?
It's like infused with charcoal. And I was like, I know charcoal's good for your teeth. And so my husband's like, just get Colgate. I'm like, no, this has charcoal in it. This is cool.
Oh, is it that hello one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've gotten samples in my Walmart beauty box. Everybody listening, this is not like a sponsor episode. I've actually gotten the samples of that toothpaste
Oh, that's awesome.
before, and it
I
tastes good.
it does taste good, and I'm like, I'd like to think it's working, but yeah, no, I get excited about the most like mundane things now, and I'm just like, God, this is what it means to be in your 30s.
Don't feel bad. I'm like, oh, this body wash brand I like has a new scent.
I'm so excited. I didn't even know this was coming. Yeah, no. Oh my God. And like my life's goal is to be able to afford like an air fryer at some point. I'm like, God, what's wrong with me?
Well, that you said okay. You made me think of what are some of your hobbies? Do you like to cook or bake?
No. That's my husband's area. He's like the cook and the musician, and I'm like I just cut stuff out of paper. And I yeah, that's kind of in taking care of my son. That's not really a hobby. That's that's just what I do. But like I've I'm really I'm working at trying to like branch out and like do something that's more physical. So I'm looking to like start doing a dance class and things like that. I used to,
Oh,
yeah, when I was in college, I took a social dance class and I really liked it, and then I never did it again. But I did like it, so that would be fun. I have a friend out here, and she wants me to join the roller derby team, and I'm not super keen on that because I'm not a huge person. Like I'm tiny, and she's like, "Oh no, no, we need someone like that, so we can like spin and throw you." And I'm like, "No, see, I don't know if I want to do that."
that sounds painful.
Like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna have so many bruises." I'm like, "You're not selling this in a way that makes me want to do it. Like, I'm not feeling it." But yeah, I'm looking to kind of like just do some more things that are uh more active, and it's just it's hard to kind of like go out and do stuff on my own because I my son does go to daycare for a couple days a week, but like during those times I'm like, okay, this is uninterrupted work time. I'm gonna get as much done as I can. So yeah, I need to work better at I guess like scheduling out my time. It's been
It's hard.
kind of a challenge.
It's really hard. And I wonder, do you, now I don't have any children, but let me know if you feel this way because I feel like it's even more intense when you're a parent. Like even on the weekends, I'm a morning person, so I'll wake up around 6 or 7 on the weekends, and then I look at the clock and it's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I think,
Yeah.
where
Oh
did
yeah.
the time go?
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. And it was a challenge because like I'm used to having like a very rigid schedule. Like, okay, I'm gonna have class from 8 to 9, and then I have a break, and then I have a class again. And so like when it was no schedule, I'm like, oh my god, I can do whatever I want. This is so crazy. And then I realized when I can do whatever I want, my what I like to do is nothing. So that's not a great use of time. So and having a toddler, like I'll sit down and I'm like, okay, he's occupied, he's got an airplane or something, and he's okay. And then I'll start working, and then he'll be like, food. And I was like, okay, I'll go make food. And so then I'll do that. I'll make food. I'll come sit back down, and then like the cats will like knock something over. I'm like, okay, I gotta go deal with that. And then like, I can't have just like a solid chunk of like sit down work time without constantly being interrupted. And I it just doesn't happen. So roundabout answer to your question, I don't have hobbies at the moment because I have no time.
That's understandable, and I think this season of life is gonna fly by though, and before
Absolutely.
long, little buddy's gonna be a teenager.
Oh my god, no, he's not allowed to do that. No,
Oh.
he's God. No, I told my so when I was pregnant, I was convinced I was having a girl. I was like, I think it's a girl. My husband's like, no, it's not. It's probably a boy. And then it was a boy, and I was just like, I don't know how to deal with boys. Like girl stuff I can deal with, but like I don't know how to deal with boys. My husband's like, just realize that anything they do, they're gonna do. Just ensure that nothing is like irreparable. Like if they're gonna like hang on something, they're probably gonna fall and they're probably gonna scrape their knee, but they'll be okay. And I'm like, okay, that's exciting. Yay. Okay.
That's so funny. Yeah, my friends with little kids, it's I really admire people who don't lose their identity solely to spouse or parent.
Yeah.
And it looks like you have a good balance of that because you're also Christy the artist.
Yeah. No, that's actually it's interesting you say that because I that was something that was really really important to me, and that kind of added to the existential crisis because like being a teacher was so integral to my like so much time and energy and mental energy and emotions was like invested in that, and then it just kind of like was gone. And so I'm like, I don't, I don't know what to do with myself. And so like I mean I love being a mom and I love my son and I love being a wife, but like I also value my independence and I value, elements about myself that, are definitive of me just as me. Um, but yeah, it's and I wonder if it's like I wonder if it's different for women, like having to be a certain way when they're a mom. Like I remember like one thing that kind of bothered me when I was pregnant was when I was pregnant, I got asked constantly, like, so are you going to stay home with the baby or are you going to go back to work? And I was like, I don't know yet. Probably going to go back to work. And they're like, but they never asked my husband that question, which I thought was weird. And I kind of realized, like, yeah, there's still kind of a stigma attached to being a mom, and how you should be a certain way, and you kind of relinquish all of your identity and invest it entirely. And I mean, I do put a ton of work and a ton of love and affection into being a mom, but at the same time, I think I would be doing my son a disservice if I didn't hold on to who I am and was before I was a mom.
I agree with that completely. In fact, today, so my boss is a badass woman. She is
Nice.
kind, she's professional, she's encouraging, she believes in lifting people up. There's not, you know how sometimes, I
Yeah,
hate to
absolutely.
say it, but like sometimes some older ladies, they see people like younger than they are and they feel intimidated,
Like,
not her.
yeah.
And today, and another coworker, I saw him and I was like, oh, I saw that your daughter, who's about my age, is going to be in a local production of A Streetcar Named Desire.
Super cool.
And yeah, and he got all huffy. He goes, "Oh, she needs to be at home with her two babies and her husband." And my boss just looked at him and said, "Yeah, she just has to be at home waiting on her husband and the baby. She can't do anything else." Obviously being sarcastic. And
Right,
he
right.
got he got quiet when she said that. And my boss started praising his daughter for everything that she does. And
Yeah.
it is true. Like, okay, so what do the husbands do? Are they allowed to go play
Sure.
games with their friends? And now,
Absolutely.
okay, this is not a slight against women who that's what they want to do, and that's what
No,
they
absolutely
that's
not.
I don't mean that at
No,
all.
no, 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 no. It's interesting when I taught history, our curriculum shifted, and so I taught modern American history, and so that was like Reconstruction onward. And the way we divided
Mm-hmm.
it was every unit was based on one of the lines from the preamble. So it was more thematic development as opposed to linear.
Ooh, that's
Yeah, it was really
cool.
fun. So like the first couple of units were all about kind of like citizenship and the rights you're guaranteed and how one's rights evolved. And so we would talk about groups of people that, I guess I should also mention, since this was a private school, I could teach whatever I wanted, which was really fun. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, there are no state standards. Well, there were, but they didn't affect us. I could do kind of whatever I wanted. I worked, my coworker and I really wanted to talk about groups of people that don't usually get taught in school. So we talked about Native American rights, we talked about immigration rights, but we also talked about feminism. So we talked about the first two waves of feminism, and we talked about, you know, the second wave being with the feminine mystique, and how it really kind of kickstarted this woman saying, like, well, what else is there? Like, very much like women in Mad Men, sort of kind of like, I don't have to do this, like this revelation, and other women think the same thing. And I told them, like, if you want to stay home and you want to, cook, and you want to be a stay-at-home mom, and that's what you enjoy and you want to do it, then do it. That's great. But if you don't, you want to go to the workforce, you should have just as much support to do that. That not to get on like a feminist soapbox or anything like that, but like to me,
Hmm.
feminism is more about like equal opportunity and equal support um, in pursuing, whatever you feel like you want to do.
Yeah, that's the whole point. You should be empowered to do whatever you want to do. And it just blows my mind when I think about what, like, not even 50, 60 years ago, women had the ability to own credit cards.
Oh yeah, no, that was, yeah, it was in the late 60s, early 70s. They couldn't get passports without their husband's approval. They couldn't get credit cards. They couldn't get mortgages. It was just ridiculous. And I really tried to have conversations with my students, like, look, we're not talking about this because men are bad. Like, that's by no means the conversation. You just have to see that not everybody has the same rights or had the same rights. And these are the steps. Like, we did one project, it's still my favorite project we've ever done, where they did like this past, present, future video where they had to look at the past and explain what the rights were in that time, then compare it to how it's evolved to our rights right now, and then how they foresee potentially the rights changing in the future and what would need to happen for those things to change. And so, we had some, like, the kids I taught were very mature. Like, they were eighth graders, but they were very, very mature. And they would ask questions because they were genuinely interested. They're just like, well, can guys be feminists? And some of the girls are like, absolutely. Like, anyone can be a feminist. It's just wanting to have equal rights. So those are the things I miss about teaching. Like, I love having conversations with like kids and seeing like their little wheels turn and like asking questions because they're genuinely interested. And like, the only kid I talk to doesn't, he just says car a lot.
Oh, that is so awesome. It's really important to foster curiosity, and it's good to help people realize, no, wait, if everybody has equal rights, and that's a good thing. It's not that you're taking away from anyone.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to bring up. Like, adding rights for people isn't diminishing the rights from people who already had them.
Hmm.
So, and not even making a political statement, just everyone should have, I think, the right to, vote.
Yeah, be themselves and
Curious
live.
about, like, I don't know the full vibe of the podcast you guys have, so I hope like this isn't offensive to your fan
Mm.
base, but like I'm very much a, you do you. I don't as long as it doesn't actively hurt somebody in my life or me, I don't care. If you want to love a
Oh.
lamp, you can love a lamp. I don't care. It doesn't affect me in any way whatsoever. It's a little something I wouldn't be like think about, but hey, you do you. I don't care.
Oh no, this we're very much love everybody and empower and inspire people. Every June there's a Pride panel. We've had women's panels.
Oh,
We've
that's
had
awesome.
Black panels with different Black content creators. So it's there's so much beauty in this world, and I have to remember that
Oh,
because
absolutely.
it's really easy to get bogged down in the horrific past and the realities and
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you're in your early 30s, then I assume you would identify more as a millennial.
yes.
Okay, so I did we had a guy come to our school one time to talk to us about kind of generational characteristics in a way to kind of help us understand and communicate with our students in a way that's more reflective of like the way they were brought up, which is a reflection of how their parents were brought up. And they were talking about how millennials have lived. They're a really unique group because we've lived in a time before the internet and grown into the internet. We've also lived a time before there were major security threats and seen like, oh, now, like I told the kids, like, there was a time that you could meet somebody at a gate when you're at the airport. Like, you could just go meet them when they come off the plane. Like, no, you can't. I'm like, you could, and you didn't have to take off.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that was the time. So I think, millennials really do kind of sometimes have like a sense of like dread and
What's next?
yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's the same with like this generation, like the Gen Zs, like they've they're constantly connected to the world. So every teeny tiny thing that happens, they can know about if they want to. And I think that in itself, like there could be things that have happened, in the 90s that are like, oh, that was horrible. I wasn't alive during then and I didn't know. There wasn't constant news coverage of it. There wasn't a Twitter post about it. People weren't giving their opinions about it constantly. People weren't fighting about it visually constantly. And I think that, that sort of constant bombardment of people feeling like they always have a platform that's a very public platform can be really just exhausting.
It really is. And I was thinking about, I say this like all the time. I got rid of Facebook last year before 2020 even really kicked off into gear. So I missed out on
really,
the,
really what kicked it into high gear.
yeah, so I missed out on the fun. But even before the trash fire that was 2020, I
Yeah.
remember seeing some older relatives I had on Facebook. And these are people I enjoyed seeing at family reunions. I enjoyed their company. And I don't know if something changed, like they're saying they're dealing with what you're saying, where everybody has a platform and they feel like they can say whatever they want, or if that's just how they've always been.
Right. I feel like social media, it has this like power to like connect. Like I'm still connected with my people back in Nebraska, back in Houston. Like I have a group of friends from high school that are literally all over the country that we still can, we have a text group together. But I feel like the dangerous part that social media kind of adds to is it's kind of like an echo chamber
Hmm.
where like you can join a group of people that are all one kind of belief system, and if you're constantly, you know engaging with that belief system, you're not looking at other ones. Like, I mean, I'm just as guilty of it too. Like, there'll be certain news sites that I'm like, I don't want to watch that. Like, I'm not going to go on to whatever. Like, I don't want to watch Alex Jones. He's not someone I enjoy listening to. So I'm going to avoid listening to stuff like that. Just like, other people might be like, I'm not going to listen to CNN. That's all trash. So I think that having so much option and kind of fine tuning the outlet of information that you get to cater to things that you specifically, because nobody wants to watch something that's going to challenge their beliefs and makes them feel insecure and questioning. Nobody likes that feeling, so they're going to stick to things that aligns with what they already think. I mean, my dad and I kind of talked about this at one point. He's like, when I was your age, it was like 2 news networks. Like there were 5 channels in total. So, the news was news because it was like a purposeful thing. And now news is so much built on like maintaining viewership, and it's more infotainment, and it's, presenting things that they know will appeal to their specific fan base as opposed to presenting unbiased media. So I don't know. I got on a tangent. I'm off my soapbox. I'm done.
No, that's okay. And I think you're right. It's people also like to be the first one to share with their friends and family and coworkers. Oh, did you hear? Or did you
Oh,
see
yeah,
on whatever?
absolutely.
Like
I
little
no,
Paul Revere's every day.
absolutely, like as soon as the No Way Home trailer dropped, I texted my husband like, "Have you seen this yet?" And he's like, "I was just about to text you." I'm like, "Darn it, I wanted to see it first."
Okay, so did you make anything related to the
So
trailer?
I didn't. I had a little Peter Parker that I had made a few months back, and then I also had a I don't want to like spoilers, but I think most people know that Doctor Strange is in it. But there are some other characters that were in the trailer that I don't want to mention in case people don't want spoilers. That I'm like, okay, once the movie comes out, I'll probably make those, but I don't want to like I I don't want to like I've actually done. I had one thing I made. It was when WandaVision came out, and I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a whole reveal with Agatha, and I made something, and someone was like, "Thanks for the spoilers." I'm like, "The episode came out a week ago. Like, I waited. Like, come on."
You waited. You didn't. Yeah,
Like,
that's it.
I was so excited about this, and I waited a full 7 days to give everyone time to watch it. And if you didn't watch it, that's your fault. Come
Yeah,
on.
I mean, people who go on your page have to realize that you do a lot of pop culture stuff
Oh
and it
yeah,
tends to be timely.
right.
So, I
And
don't know.
that's kind of a thing too, like with the algorithm, like you have to kind of post within like this is such a nerdy thing. You have to post kind of within the trending cycle. So like if something like I'm not going to post as much Wanda stuff now because Wanda's not trending anymore. And so I kind of like jumped on that bandwagon and then got right back off and got onto Loki. So that's yep.
That is all. Yeah, I didn't even think about the algorithm part of it to help
Oh
your
my god.
visibility.
It's a it's a horrible, horrible thing. Like there are a lot of creators have commiserated about it just because like you have to post at a certain time. You have to post certain hashtags. You can't post the same hashtags in certain orders. You can't post at the same time because then it's going to consider you a bot. And now that Instagram is like, oh, we're a video sharing site now, they're prioritizing things that have videos in them. So like if you don't make a video, sometimes you're not going to bump up in the algorithm. I'm like, so I just am like, I'm just going to post whenever I want. And if it gets cool, but I don't have time to like think about all of those things.
It's a shame you can't just produce art and
No, and
think about all of that.
it's kind of a double-edged sword. And I've actually talked to my husband about this because he's a musician, and so I'm like, do you think the increased accessibility to artists has improved the quality of art being created or diluted it? In the sense that like, anyone can self-publish a book now. Like anybody can produce music and get it put on iTunes. Like you don't have to have a record deal to have your music, or even like YouTube. Like there's people discovered on YouTube all the time. Like, well, I think it's kind of the same thing. It's just like you're still a drop in a big pond, and you still have to have a lot of layers of luck to get discovered and like things like that. But I mean, at the same time, I've interacted with some people just happenstance on social media that I never would have interacted with in the real world. Like there are some people that I've sent my art to that I'm like, I never would have talked to you ever, but you happened to see my hashtag or the fact that I tagged you and you liked it. And that is super cool. So
That is cool. I remember your Bo Burnham one.
oh my god, I love him so much. Like if he were to see it, and I would die. Like when I was in college, my freshman year of college, my friends like, "Oh my god, you have to listen to this song." And I'm like, "Okay." And it was my parents think I'm gay, and it was hilarious. And I'm like, I can't, this kid's so funny. And so when he had his inside thing, I watched it and I was like, I'm kind of sad, but also this is amazing. So yeah, no, I have gotten to work with some cool people, but I mean, I wouldn't have been able to. It would have taken, I think, a significant more amount of work and a wink and a prayer to have contacted them if I didn't have social media.
It's a blessing and a curse,
It
just
is
like you said. Well,
100%.
well, do you also take requests? Like if someone said, "Hey, I want you to make my cat" or
Oh
something.
yeah, absolutely. I do custom orders all the time. I'm kind of backed up right now, but yeah, I've gotten some weird ones, and I will literally make anything anyone wants. Like there's I like the weird ones the most because a lot of times they're like, yeah, just take a picture of me and my husband or me and my cat. And I'm like, do you want to be like, do anything cool? And no, just have the cat next to me. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And those are fine. Like, if that's what you want, cool. I can totally do that. But I did have one lady, she was so cool. I think she was I want to say she was in either Vegas or LA. But she was like, so my husband builds robots and the robot has a pink bow tie. Can you make that? I'm like, yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you for this opportunity.
Yeah, and I had another one that was like my son's teacher is moving away, but in her free time she dresses up. Can you dress her up in her costume? I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. What is she? She's like, oh, she's a gothic mermaid, and she sent me a picture. I'm like, that's awesome. So I love doing custom portraits, especially when they're really weird or if they're commemorating like a super important event. Like I've done like wedding announcements. I did a series for one of my friends back in high school, um, a panel of all the 6 dogs that she's ever had for her son's room in her nursery. And so that was really fun. So I think the more personal the piece is, the more I enjoy making it. But I'll make whatever. I don't care.
That is so awesome because I've seen your Instagram and I remember going in your Etsy shop and I believe I did see you have a note on there like please reach out to me if you don't see something you're interested in.
Absolutely. Yep. And I have a whole system that I developed to kind of keep track of it because it's it can be tricky to kind of like remember if someone's emailed me or if they've sent me an Instagram post or if they've messaged me on Etsy. So I have like a whole system to make sure that I don't like I've had some rude people like, thanks for responding. And I was like, you literally sent me a message 7 hours ago and I was sleeping. So I will get back to you in just a moment. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I have a life outside of the
Sorry.
internet.
Like, I'm not constantly on my, well, that's not true. I am constantly, but I was sleeping. Like she sent me a message. It doesn't matter. But I try to respond as quickly as I can in waking hours. So
You're human. How dare
I
you be human? Gosh, people,
I
come
know.
on. It's not like it's the emergency room or something.
Well, well, and like I did have one person, like he had messaged me at one point, and I like the bad interactions are the only ones that stick with me because like I had a lot of really good ones, but like I can remember distinctly any of the bad ones. And this guy was like, "Well, I thought you were gonna get this done here, and blah 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 blah." And I saw on your Instagram that you were making new stuff, so clearly you've had time. And I'm like, "Whoa, okay." He's like, "Well, you just ruined my wife's birthday. I just want you to know." And I'm like, "Because I didn't do a paper cutout of New Kids on the Block, your wife's birthday is ruined. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that." So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes me want to vomit when I think about everything going on in the world right now.
Wow, and I'm just like, this is the hill you're gonna die on? Like this is it? Okay, that's fine. I'm sorry that my inactivity ruined your life.
I hate to say this phrase, but maybe he should check his privilege.
I
A little
mean, I'm like,
bit.
okay. And like I'm such a like I hate confrontation, so like then I'm trying to fix it. I'm like, well, I can try to make it in time. It's like, oh, so now you suddenly have time? I'm like, look, dude, I'm trying to make this right, and you're making this very difficult. Like, calm it down. But yeah, no, I think that there's a lot of times that people see like the art industry as like an industry that they can sort of push around because like there's this perception that like, oh, you need me because I'm your client and you get paid with me. And it's like, I don't want to work with you actually. The amount of headache and heartache that this $100 is going to bring me is not worth it. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like, hey, can you write or design something for me for exposure bucks?
Oh my God. Yeah. No, it's a good thing that, my son lives on exposure. Like it's his favorite meal. But like, no, I have had a lot of people. I did have one girl, she reached out to me and she's like, yeah, I need a logo design. And I like gave her my rates and everything. She's like, that's how much it costs. I'm like, girl, that is a cheap logo design. Like, you want to find an actual logo artist? It's gonna be like triple that. And she's like, I think I'm just gonna look around. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, and I mean, I try not to take those things personally. I'm like, maybe she doesn't have a budget. Whatever her needs are. I don't know her life. That's fine. But like, I just don't understand why people have to be like rude on top of it. Like, there's a simple like, that's kind of out of my price range. I'm gonna keep
It's an
looking. That's fine.
it's entitlement.
It
A
is like
lot of entitlement.
I man, I've realized how much I dislike people sometimes. I'm just like, oh my god.
Oh, it's so true. And we at Boss Rush we interview a lot of people like with the games industry and we follow a lot of the games news and especially these poor indie developers with little
Oh my
games.
god. Yeah.
They get so much backlash, even more than the AAA type
Oh my
developers.
god.
And it's like these people deserve to eat as well. I don't
I remember, and I'm sure you guys have seen the documentary Indie Game, and it was like the guys that developed Meat Boy and Fez, and I think maybe one other game. But like, I had so much mad respect for these guys by the end of it. I'm like, you're like two guys developing a full game, and they were getting all this hate, like, oh, it's glitching. I'm like, dude, give them a break. They didn't sleep for 6 months.
I, I I don't get upset like if my like I played a game last year that's so precious. It's Calico. Have
Oh
you did you
yeah,
hear about it? The
yeah,
little
yeah,
cat cafe, and they were getting some backlash because it was glitchy, and I'm just like, guys, we live in a world where they can send updates now. It's not like you're buying the cartridge and that's the end. Like it's
right,
not that big of a deal, and
right.
it's so precious. I'm riding a giant cat. That's all I need in life.
Right. Like this is the joy that the world was needing in 2020.
100%. I just, as I get older, I believe in giving people grace as much as
Mhm.
I believe in giving myself grace.
Oh,
Just,
that's a really good. Yeah, no, that's I think a really a good thing to think about. And I also I really am trying to be more of an advocate and a value of my time. So,
mhm.
when someone's like, "Yeah, this is my budget." I'm like, "Well, this is what I can create in that amount of time with that budget. And if that doesn't work with you, that's fine." Like, I'm not gonna, lower my standards and my expectations of my value because it doesn't meet you. Like you can meet me or you can find someone else. And that's perfectly fine too.
Yeah, you can fire clients, people.
That's the thing that people don't understand. Like I'm like, dude, this is a two-way. Like, oh my God, I had one and she was just very particular and like I'm perfectly fine being as detailed as you want with a design. Like I've had people go down to like the shirt design they want their person to wear. I'm like, that's fine, I can do that. But when it's very vague and very abstract and ambiguous, and she's like, yeah, I don't think you captured our vibe. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. What do you mean by that? And she's like, just like who we are. And I'm like, girl, I don't even know who you are. Like you contacted me on social media. I've never met you, nor will I ever meet you. So I'm sorry I don't inherently know your vibe. I apologize. But
That
yeah,
is a popular word right now, vibe.
I know. Oh my God. I watched a documentary about the fire festival that happened a few years back.
Oh
And right, and they were talking about how all these influencers went and everything, and they're just like, we try to promote like, a vibe and like good vibes only kind of lifestyle, and like that's who we are. And I'm like, I sometimes I don't have good vibes, and I think that's okay too. It's sometimes,
toxic positivity is a thing.
oh my God, I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, no, I can have a bad day. That doesn't make me a bad person. It just means that I haven't had coffee yet. And you need to just be okay with that. So,
Oh yeah. Something, I mean, I don't like being snapped at, but like if someone at work, like no one's ever been like, verbally abusive, but I can tell if someone's having an off day
oh, yeah.
and they get a little snippy, but then it's usually the kind of person like who will apologize after. And I'm like, look, if I were dealing with what you're dealing with,
Right.
but
Absolutely.
I appreciate apologies. Like it helps,
Absolutely.
like I understand that that's not the way I want to treat people, but also I don't know what people are going through. I don't.
Absolutely. No, and I think being a teacher for as long as I was, like, I remember one time I had a colleague back in Nebraska who said, well, you teach at a private school now. Like, what kind of problems do those kids have? 'Cause we used to teach at a low income school. And I was like, dude, kids are kids. Like, they have problems. They're not like worried about when their next meal is going to be, which, that's a horrific problem that they're having. But like, their parents are out of town on the majority of the time and they're being raised by a nanny if they're raised at all. So kids are kids. Everyone has problems. You can't, it's apples to oranges. So
100%. Did you ever read the young adult book Define Normal?
no, I haven't.
It's about a girl whose mom has mental health issues and she has two younger brothers and they're poor, and she befriends or starts studying with this girl who's like the goth or whatever, and she goes to her house and her family's wealthy and the
Oh, wow.
parents love the girl who comes from the poorer family because she's polite and just such a good influence. But it's echoing what you're saying, where kids are kids, and just because you have money or not, you're gonna have problems.
Oh, yeah. Like, I can't imagine just like you're a cesspool of hormones and your body's changing and you're attracted to things and you smell bad and like you're having to learn at the same time and like you're like having a crush on someone. Like, there's so much that, like, God, I think it's, I guess the truth there is that like I feel like it's made me appreciate being empathetic a lot more for a lot of people and just like realizing like, dude, if you're having a bad day, you're having a bad day. I know it's probably not my fault. I had a therapist one time tell me like, I'm telling you this not to hurt your feelings, but you're not as important as you think you are. And I was like, that's really good advice. Like, a person has probably 100 interactions a day. The one I had with you for 4 seconds probably wasn't the one that broke your day.
That's a great piece of advice. And I'm sure, is it similar to people don't think about you as much as you think they do?
Absolutely, absolutely. Just because, like, and there's other times where I'll had a friend like she's like, I'm really sorry for something I said. I was like, I don't even remember what she said, but I've been thinking about it for like the last few hours. But I don't. I mean, I do the same thing. I'm like, I was such a dick to you. I'm so sorry. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, never mind, never mind. It's
I don't
fine.
know, nothing,
It's
nothing.
all good. Never
I
mind.
wasn't. Well, you're such a well of wisdom. Do you have any advice for people who? I'm serious. Do you have
No,
any
no,
advice
no.
for people who are interested in pursuing crafts or any kind of creative endeavor?
Man, I think the best. I remember seeing this political cartoon one time that really resonated with me, and I'm going to try to verbally describe a picture so this could go horribly wrong, but it was like a guy and he was on a stage and he was like juggling plates, and then behind him was just like a ton of broken plates. And that really resonated, I guess, with me the most because like I like to look back at like stuff that I created when I was first starting out and I thought it was like the best thing I've ever made. And I look back and like that was awful. Like, I want to go back and apologize the clients I had when I was first starting. I was like, God, you paid money for that. Why would you do that? But like, I think the best advice I can give someone is that it's such a process, and you know, y- you're always getting better. Like, if you think you're done, then you need to find another talent. Like, there was a quote from a violinist, and he was like 90 years old, and they asked like, you're a master violinist. Like, why do you keep practicing? He's like, because I think I'm getting better. And I think that's a really, like, in the arts and really in any field, like, just keep doing it. And you're gonna, like, where you're at right now, and you think you're the best. In, a year and 6 months, you're gonna look back and be like, man, I've gotten so much better. But you have to keep doing it. Like you just have to keep building it. And you have to have patience.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Patience is the best one. And you're always growing. Like I like to write, and I still appreciate and I want feedback. I want someone to help me see, hey, well, if you did this way, it would sound better. It's not, and the fact that someone's taking the time to offer feedback,
Mhm.
that's someone's
Absolutely.
time like that. Take
Right.
advantage of that. That doesn't mean you're crappy at anything.
No, well, and I think also it's valuing the feedback and deciding what, because a lot of times if I get feedback from someone where I'm like, okay, well, I appreciate you told me, but I don't actually value that feedback, so I'm going to discredit it. But if I have another artist that I look up to, or someone that I admire giving me feedback, then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to take more consideration into that. If you're the smartest person in a room, then you're probably not in the right room, sort of thing. um I guess that's kind of the best feedback I can give you.
That's awesome. Yeah, please don't make me be the smartest person in the room. We're
No.
doomed.
Oh my God. I can't. I'm just like, no. When you said I'm a wealth of wisdom, like, no, don't say that. I watch Powerpuff Girls and Blippi all day. Like, I'm not a wealth of
There's
wisdom.
nothing wrong with Powerpuff Girls.
Oh my God. That's like my favorite. That was my favorite show. Like, I loved it so much. I
Which
I
one's
oh,
which
the
one's your
Bubbles,
favorite?
100%. Like I was all about Bubbles. I think I wanted to be a Buttercup and I wanted to be more badass, but I knew in my core, like if someone took my stuffed animal, I would be crying. So I'm like, yeah, no, I'm a Bubbles. It's okay. I also wanted to be like Sedusa though, because I was like, she's so cool,
She is.
right? I was like,
And
she's so awesome.
her name went over my head as a kid.
Oh yeah, no, there's so many jokes where I'm just like, oh, that's kind of inappropriate. Like the '90s cartoons were just made different. Like,
They really were. I'm listening to a Rugrats podcast called
oh, that's cool.
Because I've lost control of my life, and they'll bring up things that I forgot about, and I'm like, oh, that's
That's
an
awesome.
adult joke.
And it's interesting. There's a YouTube channel my husband and I watch. I think it was a Wisecrack episode where they did like an analysis on the perfect millennial parents that were the Rugrats parents and why the Rugrats were being raised the way they were. And they were talking about how like the mom is constantly using like Dr. Lipschitz to like guide her life, and the Angelica's mom is like a businesswoman and all this like all of these aspects. I'm like, oh crap, yeah, those were just like my parents. So, yeah, nope, 100%.
Well, do you have any future projects or anything that you're working on right now?
Yeah, so I'm finishing up the alphabet thing. I'm gonna try to do some new pieces for Bob's Burgers premiere. And then I'm gonna do the. I keep saying I'm gonna do these things. I don't know what I'm gonna do. In an ideal world, I have lists. I'm gonna try to do the Fool's Night Out for Halloween. And then I'm going to be hopefully still in Vegas at the ISCA, which is the International Society of Character Artists. So
What?
so I get to speak at that, so that'll be fun. I guess most recently, there was a Breaking Bad book that just came out, maybe last week. It's called 99.1% Pure, and they have featured artists from all over the world, and one of my pieces was in there, so that was kind of cool.
Congratulations.
So I'm like, oh, I'm a published illustrator now.
Which
So
piece did they pick? It was a Breaking Bad piece?
yeah. So I think it's the start of chapter 2, but it's like a full length spread, and like they interviewed me and like asked some questions, and some of the answers were in there, so I was like, oh, that's super cool. So I'm doing that, and gosh, I'm doing a bunch of art exchanges with some people, because I like to try to expand my network of people that I can work
Mm-hmm.
with. And I think that's it. I'm gonna try to make a Halloween costume for my son this year, so that's gonna be awesome.
Oh, do you know what you'd like to dress him up as?
So right now I think we're looking at Blue's Clues because he's really into it. So he's gonna be Steve, and I'm gonna be Magenta, and my husband's gonna be Blue, I think. So
That is so freaking cute.
I know
Oh, love
we're gonna
that
see if we can pull
show.
it off.
Steve. Well, how can listeners support you?
Honestly, the biggest support is just sharing things that you like that I've made, and broadening my audience so that people that may follow you have an opportunity to see things that I've made. And I mean, obviously, if purchasing any of my art financially is supportive, but throwing a wide net to potentially new followers or new fans is the easiest way. I have a Patreon. It's just from pen to paper, and you can follow that as well. Um, Pretty much it.
Oh, I feel like I could talk to you for like 5 more hours, but
Oh my god.
this is so much fun. And I know you have little guy to go take care of and everything.
Yeah.
And listeners, I thank you so much for listening to this interview with From Pen to Paper Studio, Kristy Edgar. I love her work, and I really hope you all go look it up and check it out. Maybe you can request a
Yeah.
customized piece.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, you can find us on bossrush.net. You can find me on Twitter at Fairy Crypt. I do have an Instagram, but like I told Kristy, I made it private because I'm so tired of the bots and the
Oh,
creeps.
girl, I'm tired of like single women in my area, so it's yeah, totally, totally get it.
Well, listeners, until next time, we'll talk to you later. Bye,
Bye.
listeners.